Welcome to the Catholic Messenger Conversations podcast. My name is Dan Russo. I'm the editor of the Catholic Messenger. This is my first podcast. I'm taking over for Barb Arlen-Fye, who was the editor of the Messenger for many years. Glad to be here. We've got a special guest today, Bishop Tom Hennen, a former priest of the Diocese of Davenport, who has become a bishop. Before we get there, our diocesan reporter Lindsay is going to do a news roundup of stories that are coming up in the Messenger.
Thank you, Dan. So this week we have the second in our Sports and Faith series. Last week we profiled a retired priest of our diocese who for many years was both a priest and a coach. And then this week's story is focusing on the ways that faith can help athletes with their mental health, whether it's putting things in perspective or just helping them feel more gratitude in life altogether. And we also have some news from the recent White Mass for medical professionals and the talk afterwards from the president of the Catholic Medical Association, who gave tips for families on that they can use for identifying and coping with anxiety with their children. And we also have some news from the Women's Choice Center in Bettendorf, which just delivered a new name and logo and is expecting some remodels soon. We also have some info on upcoming presentations from Chris Stefanik, who's a national presenter. And then next week, you, Dan, are going to be going to the 50th anniversary Mass in Iowa City, which is always a very heartwarming event. And just as a little reminder that the best way that you can support local Catholic news is with a subscription to our print and or e-edition. For less than $1 a week, you can help us in our mission to inform, educate, and inspire the faithful in the Davenport Diocese and beyond. You can sign up online at www.catholicmessenger.net or contact your local parish if you happen to be in Southeast Iowa. Now, back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Lindsay. So let's get into the interview. Bishop Hennen is with us next. Thank you. I'm here with our diocesan reporter, Lindsay Steele, and our special guest today is Bishop Tom Hennen. I was able to watch the live stream of your ordination, and I was kind of catching up because I just got here to the diocese. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to be there and to be ordained? What was going through your mind when I saw you lying prostrate before the altar?
Yeah.
Very solemn moment. What do you recall about that?
Yeah. Overwhelming, of course. A lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of people from different parish ministries and other ministries that I've had as a priest that were present there. So to be surrounded by them and really could almost palpably feel their love and support and their prayers. Of course, it was the third time I've lain down on the ground like that. First for my diaconate ordination, and then second for my priesthood ordination 21 years ago, and then a very different experience, obviously, for this. And kind of a lot of it looking back, of course, it's kind of, I suppose it's like people's wedding day. They look back and a lot of it is a blur. You just kind of go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. But I do remember being, at the Mass and really being wide-eyed and open to whatever was, going to take place there, and really trying to be attentive and in the moment and give myself as perfectly as I could in that moment. So it was a really graced time for sure. And to see so many of now my brother bishops there from other places and from Region 12 where I belong now, and Bishop Walsh, of course, from the Diocese of Davenport, Archbishop Zinkula from Dubuque was there, Bishop Pates from Des Moines, so some folks that are from a little bit closer to home. It was really beautiful.
Now, I also noted that the papal nuncio made a little bit of a joke about your family.
Yeah.
I know you from research that you come from a very big family. What was your family's reaction to you becoming a bishop?
Yeah. So they are, of course, very ecstatic, excited, proud, happy, sad, all of those things. Sad in the sense that I'm moving far away from a lot of them, Mm-hmm. But no, they've been wonderful, and so very, I guess, proud of me as their little brother that's this bishop. So it's got to be weird for them. But then, some of them, I need my family to be my family, right? And so some of them are like, our relationship really hasn't changed. I'm still their brother, so that doesn't there's no weirdness there because they've known me literally my entire life, and I need them to be my sisters and brothers. And my niece, who's closer in age to me, like a sister, always says, "We know who you really are." And I appreciate that because it kind of like grounds me. Yep, I'm just this, I'm still a kid from Ottumwa, Iowa, and that's as they've known me.
So Lindsay and I were talking before the podcast, and one of the things that we discussed was humility, because I understand when you're elevated and even being a priest, but now a bishop, I guess a lot of people are coming up to you and saying how great you are and everything like that. What do you do to kind of stay humble? I would say.
Yeah, I mean, prayer is a big piece of that. And, I know myself before God, best, right? And so in that time of prayer, when each of us can kind of just have that time where we're alone with God, then kind of the rest of the world and its adulations melt away, and it's just you and the Lord. So I think that's a big part of it is that daily prayer. I mentioned at my, in my comments after my ordination and even at my press conference on July 10th that when I was first ordained a priest, I had kind of given everything over to Mary as kind of the patroness, if you will, of my priesthood. And part of the reason for that is then I could just kind of, any good that came, I could say, this is yours, this is yours, this is yours. I could just pass it off to her, knowing she would in turn pass it off to Jesus. And so kind of try to let it slide off a little bit. We're human, of course, and so you do hear this, and especially I'm in the honeymoon period still very much, so people have just been oohing and awing and, oh, welcome and congratulations and, all this kind of stuff, which is wonderful. But there will come a time when, they may think otherwise once I have to make a few decisions or those kind of things. And some of that will wear off, but hopefully they'll always know that, I do have their best interest in mind and that I love them, and I'm not acting kind of capriciously or just out of my own self-will, but hopefully doing what God wants for the church.
One thing that I noted when I was reading about your biography is that your parents are no longer with us, and they had you later in life.
Yeah.
As a parent, whenever someone can not only stay Catholic once they grow up, but become a bishop, there must have been something special going on in your house. Could you talk a little bit about the influence of your family, your parents specifically, on your faith?
Certainly. Yeah. I think when you're growing up in the midst of it, you don't realize how precious it is, and it was not anything extraordinary. I think it was in a lot of very, very ordinary Catholic moments. Things as simple as going to Mass on Sunday, as a family trying to get to the Sacrament of Reconciliation on a Saturday afternoon once in a while, praying before every meal, to having conversations at the dinner table about what we were learning in, our religious education formation and those kind of things, having real conversations about what's going on in the world and how that relates to our faith. And and little Catholic customs in the home, from, Advent calendars to making homemade Easter baskets to St. Nicholas putting your shoes out on December 6th, and all of those little things that over time, I think I was just kind of surrounded by that. So it was normal, natural, felt like home, right? To do those things. And then when I could make the faith more my own, probably particularly when I was, getting to be confirmation age later in high school and going off to college, then it wasn't so much of a stretch for me. And the other thing is my parents lived their faith, right? And I could see that. That was obvious in the way that they were involved in their community and the way that they were involved in their church, in the way that they raised my family and treated each other and treated others. And now that doesn't mean they were perfect or didn't have their moments. We all do, but they were really, they were trying, like all of us, to live their faith intentionally. And I think that had a huge effect. So from Ottumwa, you are now back to being your journey to a bishop.
Yep. You are the youngest bishop to head a diocese in the United States. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that your youth is sort of a hindrance? Because I know in the seniority of the church, the cardinals, everybody's a bit older, so they might pull rank. Or maybe that's going to be a help. I mean, you've got a lot to What do you think about that, being as young as you are?
I probably judge myself more on that than other people do. I mean, people that have worked with me maybe don't think about that as much, but I think, oh my goodness, I'm so young to be doing this. There are some younger bishops in the United States that are serving as auxiliaries, and granted, their vicariates, like in the Archdiocese of Chicago, are probably larger than my parish or my diocese in terms of Catholic population. I went to baby bishop school in September and met a few other bishops that are in the same kind of age range, so I didn't feel quite so alone there, but that was good. But all of the bishops that I've met, no matter how recently ordained or how senior, have treated me like a brother. So I haven't felt like looked down on. If anything, I still kind of pinch myself and say, what am I doing here? And why did they choose me at this time and all of this kind of stuff. So, but I think it is. I tend to use it as a strength, right? I think it could be something really powerful, especially for young people to see. Okay, this guy knows where we're coming from. He's not that far removed from our experience.
Now, you mentioned baby bishop school. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of training you go through, and then maybe a behind-the-scenes look? Like, what's it like in the off hours? Do a bunch of new bishops hang out? And
it's fascinating. So I had no idea what it was going to entail. I had talked to Bishop Walsh a little bit about what it was, and I probably could have punted it until next year, but the nuncio had recommended I really go this year. Plus, it's the Jubilee year. Plus, once I found I would be able to be there for the canonizations of Pier Giorgio Frassati and Carlo Acutis, I'm like, I kind of want to go this year. So that was really cool. So I was, I think, one of only 3 bishops-elect that were there. Bishop-elect Ralph O'Donnell from soon-to-be Jefferson City was there as well, and then there was a bishop in our cohort from the Netherlands that was getting ordained, I think, this month in October. To meet other bishops from truly all over the world, there were all told about 200 of us, and to be at breakfast and be sitting across the table from a bishop from Syria, sitting next to a bishop from Oslo, Norway, sitting next to a bishop from Peru, sitting across from a bishop from France, sitting next to a bishop from Australia. You get the whole kind of swath of the church at a meal, and trying to figure out what's the common language between the 3 of you. And fortunately, English worked most of the time, but I think I pulled out every language that I had a little bit of, French, Spanish, and Italian at different points during that week. The classes, it's kind of lecture style, kind of, I would say, typical Roman fashion. They give you their paper and then they read you their paper, So, but which is okay because they're doing it in Italian. You're reading along in Italian, but then they had simultaneous translation going on, kind of UN style, so you can hear it in English or French or Spanish or Portuguese or German or whatever you needed. So I was able to listen that way, and then kind of take notes and things. And then they usually have some time for Q&A after, and then during the breaks, very just kind of fraternal and getting to know each other and talk to each other. It was not, I would say, particularly practical. They really were grounding it in this Jubilee year theme of hope, and the bishop as especially a witness of hope. And so the talks were more, I would say, theological, spiritual, occasionally a little bit more practical. But it was not, here's when you put your hat on and here's when you take your hat off, and here's what to do about this and this and this. And of course, it's hard to do that for a group of 200 bishops from every continent and country, because their situations in those dioceses are going to be different from country to country.
And a little bit of a fun question, but what do you do for fun when you're not in bishop school?
Yeah, so I was able to go out and see some of the sites of Rome, which I hadn't been really back there since, I think, 2017. So some of the other American bishops that were there would say, hey, we're going to go see this or that, or we'll go into town and grab lunch or grab dinner or those kind of things. So it was a good experience just to have some fraternal time. And of course, everybody there is also, Rome is one of the few places you can actually go shopping for stuff that you need as a bishop. So it was like, we went to the stores to okay, I got to get you get this whole list of stuff that you got to have. And so you better go take advantage of it while you're there, because it's not like you can find this stuff at Kohl's. So
Right. What are some of the things that they require you to buy?
Well, some of it I had taken care of in Chicago, actually, through a store there. But you have to you have what's called a house cassock, which is what you would wear for more formal occasions or when you're meeting the Holy Father. The choir cassock, which you would wear for other ceremonial functions at which you're not presiding as a bishop. The Diocese of Davenport had generously said that they would like to get my ring and my pectoral cross, which I had ordered actually ahead of time from a company so that I would have it hopefully in time for my pictures. Didn't quite come in time for pictures, but I got it shortly thereafter. And so there's just stuff like that. You think of like zucchettos, and I had to get several of those. Those are the little skull caps you wear because you wear that underneath the mitre, again, usually just for masses and things. And so I bought a few of those, one of which is thoroughly soaked in chrism now, so I probably won't be able to wear that
I saw
anytime
that.
soon. But
I
it
saw
smells
that.
great, so I've got it in my closet, and we'll treasure that. But yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they tied something around your head to make sure that the oil didn't.
Yeah, I guess in not knowing exactly how different bishops do things, the Benedictines from Mount Angel that were emceeing for that liturgy had suggested they do that because they've seen it where bishops will like pour all over and then the oil just like run down their head and into their eyes, and it gets to be a problem like that. So they had kind of prepared me for that the day before to say we're going to do this. I said that's great. So some of the people that were from my friends and family were like, we thought it was like a Karate Kid thing they were doing. Right?
Yeah,
like
I thought so.
nope, that was just to catch the oil in case it ran down my head.
If anyone out there hasn't seen the live stream of the Mass, you should check that out. It's kind of interesting. Back to that Mass, after you were ordained, you gave a reflection. I don't know the proper term for it, but it's not a homily or...
No, they actually says in the rite there's a little time when the bishop can address the people. And so in probably typical fashion for me, I had been kind of stewing on it for a while because they had told me you need to have something, and I thought I don't want to just wing that. But I don't want it to feel overly prepared, and I don't want it to be overly long. It's already a long liturgy. So, I mean, I'll honestly say I was kind of still crafting that the morning of the day of the ordination to figure out kind of what I wanted to say, and wanted to give a message, of course, that was, thankful to God and Mary and the saints and my family and the church and all of that, but also kind of give some people an indication because everybody's kind of wondering what kind of bishop is this going to be. So, well,
I thought that was a very interesting remarks that you made, and you talked about some of the divisions in the church about traditional versus liberal versus conservative, and you said you're going to try to minister to everyone, not just one faction. Can you just discuss a little bit about how you do that? You've been a priest for a while, and you've had to do that as a priest. And what is your game plan as a bishop? How do you reach out to all these different?
Yeah, probably not any different than it was as a priest, which is I'll give anybody the time of day, and I'm willing to talk to people and listen to people and hear their concerns. And I might say, you have a point there, or I'm not sure I understand this, or you probably disagree on this, but, treating people like people, is a good start, and not automatically kind of putting people in camps, or I don't talk to these people, or I don't talk to again, we don't have that luxury as ministers of the gospel to say, here's my particular brand of Catholicism. If you like it, come here, and if you don't, then go away. Right? We preach the gospel, and some people are going to be drawn by that in different ways, and some people will be challenged by that, maybe even offended by that, as even people in Jesus' time were. But we just preach it as it is, and then work with the people as they come. So, I mean, I think there is a great breadth to our tradition in the sense of. You look at the lives of the saints, and were all of them passionate about exactly the same things, in terms of causes? No. Were all of them passionately in love with Jesus Christ? Yes. Were all of them faithful to the church? Yes. But in terms of their personalities and their charisms and their gifts, all different.
Now, logistically speaking, you're going into a diocese that is as big as the state of Iowa, very spread out. I think it's 13,000 families or
35,000 Catholics, I think they would say.
Okay.
So I don't know how many families that breaks down to, but the whole population, total population of Central and Eastern Oregon is somewhere just a little north, I think 500,000. So it's just not a very populated part of the state, period. And so considering we have almost that in the Quad City area here, in terms of total population, and then a very small Catholic population within that. But yes, spread out over 67,000 square miles.
What have you learned? What's your first impression? What have you learned so far? What kind of different cultures are represented in your diocese, and how are you going to get around? Are you going to have an airplane? I mean, in Alaska,
No.
I think that, no.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I like 4 wheels on the ground, but I mean, I have to fly a lot now, but I don't have, it's not, I'm not a bush pilot. I don't really have any desire to learn how to fly. That would be handy, I suppose, but I will have a lot of road time, which means I'll probably have time to call my priest, call family, call friends, catch up with them, or listen to a good podcast or listen to a good audiobook. But the Sunday after my ordination, in fact, I went to the cathedral in Baker City, which is about 4 hours east of where I actually live and where the pastoral center for the diocese is. So that's not just a quick trip there and back. I went there on a Saturday night, had Mass that Sunday, and then came back Sunday afternoon. It was a beautiful drive. The country out there is just amazing. It is just really beautiful, but it is kind of sparse and rugged in some ways. It's high desert, so a lot of sagebrush and juniper trees, but also just mountains. And I mean, it's gorgeous out there. It really is. Every place likes to say this is God's country, but I can look out there and say, wow, this is a marvel of God's creation, for sure.
Have you been able to get out and enjoy it a little bit?
A little bit, not as much as I would like. During the week of the ordination, when all my family and friends, they kept saying, oh, we went and saw this, and we went and saw this. And I said, that's great. I'm glad you were able to. I'll get around to it. But I've seen a few little things closer to my neck of the woods there in Redmond, and it is just gorgeous. So I do look forward to, there's a lot of outdoorsy stuff to do out there, and I look forward to exploring more in Oregon.
Now, as far as the spiritual heritage out there goes, I know with Io, we have people like Samuel Mazzucchelli or the missionaries, the French missionaries and people like that. Did you encounter any of that Catholic history out there yet? Or how did the faith spread out into Oregon?
Yeah. Well, like in Davenport, our first bishop was Irish, and so was theirs. O'Reilly was the first bishop of the Diocese of Baker City, and so I think a lot of those from further east or other countries, so as Catholicism is spreading, west and going into more of these rural places, that's kind of how it's spreading. So it wasn't affected, I don't think, as much like by the California missions and the Franciscans and Saint Junipero Serra and those kind of things. I think it was more a lot of the early bishops, at least the first two, were Irish, O'Reilly and McGrath, and so there is a good sized Hispanic population there now. I couldn't give you numbers exactly, but based on the number of parishes that have a weekly Spanish Mass or more than that, probably more than what we have on a regular basis here in the Diocese of Davenport. And then we have a couple of Native American communities in the diocese as well. At St. Kateri Tekakwitha in Warm Springs, and I'm going there later this month and looking forward to visiting them, and so I'll get a feel for that as well. A lot of the priests that are currently serving the Diocese of Baker are from elsewhere, mostly from India, a few from Africa. So we're very much a mission diocese, and it shows because we've got missionary priests from kind of all over the world that are serving us. So that's a challenge to both be, obviously grateful and thankful for their service to provide the sacraments for the people of Central and Eastern Oregon, but also to kind of grow vocations from within the community that's based there.
Now, circling back around, you're in town now because you're doing a massive Thanksgiving at the cathedral and a few other places. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing here now and what the future holds?
Well, I knew I would be back in I'm going to continue to stay on the St. Ambrose Board of Trustees, which I've served on for a few years, and I think at least through my present term, and then I'll kind of discern whether or not I can continue on past that. I would like to if possible, but so I knew I was going to be back for the Ambrose Board meetings, and I thought, well, let's just make a week of this. And so we've got a massive Thanksgiving at the cathedral, where, of course, I had most recently served as the rector and pastor there. And then I've got Ambrose Board meetings. I've got a Mass up in Clinton at Prince of Peace, which was my first parish assignment in the diocese. So it'll be good to see folks up there. And then I've got a Mass in Ottumwa, my hometown. I've got a Mass in Iowa City. I've also got the Ambrose Homecoming Mass on Sunday. So it's kind of like all the places where I had spent some significant time, and especially for those who understandably were not able to go all the way out to Oregon for the ordination, or I couldn't invite everybody even if I wanted to, because the limitations of the church would have a bearing on that too. But so it's a good opportunity for me to come back and really say, thank you for your prayers and thank you for your faithful support over these years. And so I wanted to do this no matter what at some point. I'm glad I could do it pretty soon after.
Now, for the people that might not be able to make it to those masses or see you in person, is there anything you would like to say? I know you didn't have as much time during the ordination to address that. Anything you want to say here to the people that helped you learn to be a priest and all of that?
I am probably indebted to more people than I can count in a million different little ways, and so I don't know how I would begin to just thank all of them. But for anyone whose life mine crossed, and our paths crossed in life, I'm just so grateful, and I hope I treated you well, and I think many people had a good influence on me, and a person is, I like that line it's a prayer from St. John Henry Newman where he says, I'm a bond of connections between people. And that's every person, right? You get this from that person and this from that person, and you give this to this person, and you give that to that person, and that's humanity, that's community, that's Christianity, that's the body of Christ. And so just so grateful for the many people over the course of my lifetime, especially here in the Quad Cities, Davenport particularly, and Ottumwa, my hometown growing up, and all the places I've served in Southeast Iowa as a priest. You've made me who I am, and so if people are happy with me, they got a lot of other people to thank. So,
well, we're certainly grateful for you as well.
Thank you,
and thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks for writing the questions column in the Messenger too. I got to read some of your back columns, so
I enjoyed doing that immensely. I did promise your predecessor that I would write one more, so we'll talk about what I can do to at least get one more column in there. I think I'm going to miss doing that on a regular basis.
Sure.
But.
Well, you could write from Oregon if you want. So. All right. Well, thank you. That's all my questions, unless you had anything else you wanted to add. But thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Okay. This is wonderful.